The life of monks in the Middle Ages, not as virtuous as the history books claim. The lives of medieval monks were not as pious and irreproachable as history textbooks often suggest. Monastic novices frequently led debauched lifestyles, devoid of even the slightest hint of holiness. But monks and abbots were human too, and therefore nothing human was alien to them. In their passion for forbidden pleasures, their behavior often crossed the very moral boundaries they so fervently preached. What did monastic novices eat and drink? Monastic life imposed strict restrictions on its followers. The church strictly forbade the consumption of meat, sweets, and wine. Yet in medieval paintings, monks and high-ranking clergy always appear well-fed. This was because the greatest and most revered monk of the West, Saint Benedict, found a loophole in the very ban he had established. Meat was permitted only for sick monks, which meant that in monasteries, novices frequently suffered from severe illnesses, curing themselves with the finest cuts of meat. Historical records state unequivocally that each monk was allocated 1.5 loaves of the freshest bread per day, an unimaginable luxury for the time. It is no surprise that monasteries always had their own bakeries to satisfy the monks' insatiable appetites. Obligatory fasting had no real impact on the dietary habits of the clergy, and their daily meals remained unchanged. The monks' favorite drink was beer, which, of course, was also forbidden. Yet it was consumed more frequently than regular water. Their notorious love for wine was well known throughout medieval Europe. Alcoholism among monks and high-ranking clergy reached its peak during this period. The church even published special guidelines detailing the punishments awaiting monks for excessive drinking. However, these measures did little to curb their addiction. In fact, monks became so skilled in their drinking habits that their feats in this realm remain legendary. For example, Bishop Coutine of Tours drank to such excess that it took 4 strong men to carry him away from the table. Meanwhile, Saint Father of Soissons outdid him. His drinking binges lasted an astonishing 4 years. The business of selling monastic property. Aside from their vices, some abbots also developed a knack for business. They frequently sold off monastic possessions left and right, but naturally the money did not go toward noble causes. It went straight into the pockets of these entrepreneurs. A prime example of this is the activities of Abbot John Fox, who traded monastery lands. He was accused of embezzlement and adultery with a married woman, yet his punishment was far from severe. He was merely stripped of his title. The intimate lives of medieval monks. And now we move on to the most intriguing part. If you haven't already, give this post a like, and let's continue. Medieval monasteries were centers of sexual exploration, not only for monks, but also for outsiders who were often drawn into the clergy's intimate escapades. However, it must be acknowledged that clerics mostly preferred nuns, but such misconduct came with severe punishments. A well-documented case from the 12th century tells of a monk who was sentenced to castration for committing adultery with a nun. He carried out the punishment on himself. What he cut off was then, for some reason, ordered by merciful judges to be placed in the mouth of the sinful woman. However, this case was more of an exception than the rule for what was routinely tolerated within monastery walls. Medieval monasteries often gave rise to sexually charged religious sects. Their rituals took place in caves, where high-ranking clergy would insert a silver spoon into a woman's intimate area. The assembled participants would then take turns kissing the spoon before engaging in wild orgies, often mixed with pagan rites. Monks and senior clerics indulged in such excess that some of the older ones did not survive the revelry, dying in the midst of their debauchery. Homosexual relationships and pedophilia were also widespread within monasteries. In 1531, in medieval England, a monk named John was accused of child molestation. The victim told his mother about the incident. During the investigation, it was revealed that this was not the monk's first offense. He had been caught before. However, the punishment was surprisingly lenient. The only restriction placed on him was that boys were no longer allowed into his cell. Clerics were also punished for engaging in same-sex relations. Evidence of this is recorded in the so-called Books of Penance. A particularly interesting detail emerges from these records. If the sin of sodomy became habitual, the punishment was intensified. Thus, for many monks, sleeping with children, women, and men became a way of life. It wasn't until 1317 that King Edward I of England introduced the death penalty for such crimes. However, history shows that there were very few public trials. Over a span of 400 years, only 73 monks were executed. This suggests that authorities were rather lenient toward the various indiscretions of the monastic community. It is unclear what compels such individuals to join monasteries in the first place. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget that you can explore more content on this channel, so to ensure you don't lose it, feel free to subscribe and hit the like button.